Hello viewers, my name is Jordan Golson, and this is a new all-electric car from Toyota. It's called the bZ4X. It's not a great name, but is it a good car? Alright, first we have to talk about the name, bZ4X. Toyota says that it is part of this grand brand strategy to show how serious they are about electric cars, since they really haven't talked a lot about them, even though they've been selling EVs for a very long time. There were a couple electric versions of the Toyota RAV4, and of course they've been selling hybrids for a very long time, including the excellent Toyota RAV4 Prime that I reviewed previously. Click the link in the description below for more on that, because that thing is excellent. But BZ, they say, stands for Beyond Zero. What does that mean, you ask? They want an electric car to mean more than just have zero emissions. So Beyond Zero. What does that really mean? Nothing. It's a branding term. It sounds like something that you would have as a slogan at an investor day. Toyota, Beyond Zero. And I don't really understand that, but more on that in a second. First, we have to talk about the 4. 4 is the size of the car. Presumably, there will be a bZ5 and a bZ6 that are bigger, or a bZ3 that's smaller. And the X signifies the size of the vehicle, because this is a crossover, or SUV. So you would assume that there's a bZ5X, which would be maybe like a Highlander-sized all-electric SUV. And then maybe there's a bZ4S that would be like a Toyota Camry electric. What was wrong with Camry? What was wrong with Corolla? All these names mean something. bZ4X doesn't mean anything. Maybe it will someday, but it's interesting that Toyota is going towards letters and numbers like they pulled them out of a Scrabble bag, when other brands, like Volvo with the new XC90, is not going to be called XC90 anymore. It's going to have some name, probably something Norse. So you have one brand going towards the letters and numbers and another away, and it's an interesting industry thing. 2 drivetrain options. There is a front-wheel drive version, which is what I'm driving here. And then there is an all-wheel drive version that has 2 motors, one in front, one in back. And they seem to have gone out of their way not to make a lot of difference between the two. You don't get a ton more horsepower, you don't get a lot of torque, there's not a lot of performance, whereas most of the other EVs, when you go from single motor to dual motor, really amps things up a bit. But this is a Toyota, it's not meant for that. It's about the size of a RAV4. 0 to 60 in this one I think is 7.1 seconds, and then the all-wheel drive version is 6.5. So there's not a ton of difference between the two. There's a very slight difference in battery capacity. They're both around 72, but one's like 71.5 kilowatt hours and the other is 72.5 kilowatt hours, something like that. But for range, in the front-wheel drive version, 252 miles, and then in the all-wheel drive version, 228. So about 10% difference, which is about what you'd expect by adding an extra motor. Is the front-wheel drive lacking for power? It does just fine. In here, things get a little more interesting. In a lot of ways, very un-Toyota-ish. You have this screen that's way out there, and that shows me like what my current speed is and how full the battery is, current range, things like that. Toyota, for all their reputation as a traditional, boring, conservative company, have done some really weird user interface things in the past. Remember the first Prius? That had like this big center display that was way out there. I don't know, I mean, that was weird. This is slightly less weird. Then you have the giant center infotainment screen, which is Toyota's newest system, and thank goodness they have gotten rid of all the buttons on the sides, because I hated those. And boy, oh boy, do fingerprints show up on that thing. It's a touchscreen, that happens, but a lot of gloss black in here, not a huge fan, gets dirty super easily. What are you thinking, Toyota? Big screen, controls that stuff. The nav looks good, radio looks good, CarPlay, Android Auto, all that's here. And then you got this center panel, which is all sorts of soft touch buttons that are gonna get fingerprints on them. I don't know why they couldn't give me knobs for the temperature control. I gotta do tap this up and down, that's annoying. And there's no volume knob either. There's just this volume plus, volume minus, power button for the radio. What are they thinking? I don't know. Move down here, get a couple of vents. You get the power button to turn it on and off. This button turns the one-pedal drive mode on and off. You have an auto hold button, which is excellent. So when you come to a complete stop at a red light, you do not have to keep your foot on the brake. It'll just hold it there. It's got an eco mode button here, and so that turns down the HVAC system. It brings down the ferocity of the pedal, so you can't accelerate quite as quickly, things like that, so you can maximize your battery. Then we sort of get into this section, which is really interesting. You've got this big black thing, for whatever reason, which you can sort of see through, actually. and then you press that, and it opens up, and there's where your phone goes. So you got a Qi wireless charger there. You got a USB-A port. Okay, and then you close this up, and, well, you can't see your phone anymore. It's hidden away, so now you're totally safe, right? But it's got the clear top, so you can actually see through and see if your phone's lit up. This is very, very interesting and weird. Like, I don't know what they were thinking there, but it's kind of cool. One thing I really like is that the cup holders, there's no stupid cover over it that you're going to never close. They didn't even bother putting it there. So you've got a cover here that goes over your phone, right? Which is sort of interesting. I kind of like that. And then you close that up, and this is all nice and smooth, and you can, like, put stuff up here or whatever. But then you've got the two cup holders, and there's no, like, lid to close over it, which is great because no one's ever going to close the lid over it. Then, under here, I don't know if you can see it, there is a huge cavern underneath this center console thing, and you can put a purse or books or a whole bunch of stuff. There's a 12-volt cigarette lighter adapter, the plug that will never die. Some USB-C ports are down there as well, so you can plug in. And then you have this, like, interesting dash. This is, like, this carpet fabric material, which is kind of weird, but then it sort of slopes away from you, so you can throw stuff up there behind the screen. There's all kinds of room. And then we have to talk about the glass roof, because there's an excellent panoramic glass sunroof with a cloth shade that opens and closes. But for some reason, in the middle of it, there's a beam going across the middle, blocking your view out your beautiful glass roof. Now, this is the limited front-wheel drive trim, so it's the luxury trim with all the features, one motor up front driving the front wheels, 201 horsepower, 242 miles of EPA range, which is basically what this said when I started off. Are we going to get that much? I don't know. I can't really test it. This is just a quick first drive. We don't have a lot of time with it. Now, that's not a ton of miles. There are cars like the Ford Mustang you can get over 300, the Kia EV6, but Toyota has specifically said that they are not trying to compete on mileage, because having 300, 350, 400 miles is great, but not if you can't afford it. And so they're trying to fight in a slightly lower price bracket and be more affordable and basically be a Toyota. They know what their market is. They know who their customers are. So this is going to be an interesting competitor, and the price reflects that. This one, as spec, starts at $46,700, goes up from there with radio, weather package, rear spoiler, destination charge of $1,215, all in $49,970, or basically as close to $50,000 as you can get without going over. One other place it sort of falls short compared to a few of the competition is fast charging speed. This maxes out at 150 kilowatts, which is the same, it should be said, as Volkswagen ID4, Ford Mustang Mach-E, things like that. It is slower than the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and the Kia EV6, both of which I love, and those are my go-to EV recommendations these days because they charge so quickly. This will not do that. This is not meant to be a long distance drive, road trip, fast charge, blah, blah, blah. It will fast charge. It does support that up to 150 kilowatts, like I said. But this is not meant to be a long cruiser. This is meant to be a day-to-day driver, just like a regular RAV4 is. The exterior, very interesting. There's all sorts of shapes and nips and tucks, and the headlights look really cool, and the taillights, and just, it looks like an EV. So if you want something that's a little understated and people won't know it's electric, this is not it. It looks different. People are going to look at it and be like, huh, what's that? I like the interior a lot. It's super comfy. These are some of the best seats I've had in an EV in this price range. The seating position is good. Where my hands are on the steering wheel, I sort of wish the steering wheel went a little higher, but it doesn't. This is as high as it goes, which is a little odd. Merging onto the highway, you do get a little bit of motor whir, but it's not bad at all. A little bit of wind noise driving at speed. Turn your radio up, you won't even notice. Feels solid, as you would expect from Toyota. Now, I haven't been able to test the charging speed or the range or any of that, so we'll have to stay tuned for more details about those things. I only have a couple hours with it today, but this is a great EV. This is not a compliance car. This is a real vehicle that they intend to sell. They only expect to ship about 7,000 units during this calendar year and then go up from there. So it is not a high volume vehicle. That's about 0.39% of their total sales from last year. They've been making electrified cars for more than 20 years. Remember, the first Prius came out in like 2000, 2001, something like that. So they know how to build cars with batteries in them. And they said that they were trying to reverse the notion that Toyota has been behind in electric vehicles. Just because Toyota hasn't sold a lot of EVs doesn't mean they don't have the tech. If you drive the RAV4 Prime, you know they can build a car with a battery in it, and it works really well. This is just the RAV4 Prime with a bigger battery, bigger motor. And so don't be fooled by people saying, oh, Toyota's slow to the EV game or they're behind. So that's the bZ4X. It's their first nationwide EV, should be available soon-ish this summer. Big ad campaign for it starts in the fall, and more EVs to come from Toyota. If you enjoyed this review, click this one next. I think you'll like it. It's my review of the Toyota RAV4 Prime, which is another Toyota with a plug, and maybe the one you'd want even more than this. Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, folks. Drive safely.